as entertaining as it can be to see the reactions of, I would say, these rather mentally unstable far leftists has been after Donald Trump's election win. There have been some newses that we've come across that are just downright disturbing and sad, such as this news where a woman killed her dad with an ice pick in a meltdown over Trump's victory. So, I'm going to watch this. The channel I'm watching this on is Law and Crime Network, so you can go check the full video there. I'll leave the full video in the description.
Bludgeons her father to A Seattle woman allegedly bludgeons her father to death with an ice axe after he...
Well, it's Seattle, so that explains half the story. Allegedly bludgeons her father, so let's see the rest.
Refuses to turn the lights off in their home. When police arrive on the scene...
Imagine losing your mind. Imagine being so stressful about an election result that your father and you have a short argument on shutting the lights in a room, and next thing you know that father is unalived. Like, how unstable do you have to be as a person to do that?
She's disheveled and covered in blood, later telling first responders, quote, "It needed to happen today." Before all this, she was a manager at Jeff Bezos' aerospace.
It needed to happen today. Jesus. And she worked for Jeff Bezos' space company, apparently. So let's see what this is all about.
Space manufacturing company. But she told investigators this month's election results pushed her over the edge. So much so that she attacked her father, sat alongside his body watching him die, and later clapped out of happiness when first responders arrived to the scene.
Oh my God. What the hell?
I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. We're taking a look today at a really tragic case out of Seattle, Washington. This is our sauce.
You know what's really sad about places like Seattle? I don't think they've got a lot of... it's easy to be surrounded by people that do not have opposite views to you, differing views to you. And when you've got a whole city that literally just has the same view, almost the whole city, then it's hard to get out of, it's hard to see the opposite perspective and try to understand that, because you always have those people around you who are always, this word I can't remember, reinforce your thinking, even if your thinking might be destructive in some way.
Suspect, 33-year-old Corey Burke. She was already kind of in the public sphere before all of this because of her marriage to transgender writer Samantha Lee Allen.
I have no idea who that Samantha person is. Must be some kind of Twitter fame, to be honest.
You may know Allen as the editor of the Condé Nast transgender news publication called Them, or as the author of Real Queer America, LGBT Stories from Red States.
So a very, very niche celebrity of sorts. Right.
Burke also had a high-profile career working as a training program manager at Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' spacecraft company. But on November 5th, election night, all that changed when...
You know, these huge companies that recruit people such as this, you have to ask the question, these are billion-dollar companies, and you are giving somebody the responsibility, a management responsibility, to manage people and also train them. So the question that stands that one has to ask is, do they not have some kind of vetting process to understand the stability of the person that they're putting in that job? And I don't want to assume this, but when you think about Amazon, when you think about a lot of these companies, unfortunately, a lot of these people in admin hire people that they know of in some way, and often they hire people that might have the same belief system, so to speak. So was this a situation where even at her workplace she was in a echo chamber? Because one of the things when we go to college is we get to experience talking to people that and working with people that are opposite us. You know, we want to talk about diversity. It's not as skin deep as these woke people try to make it out. Diversity is when you sit in a room with like 10 people and 5 of them have completely different views from each other. That's diversity. And it's supposed to be that experience that gets you to learn about other people and also try to walk in other people's shoes. So and it used to be that the reason you would encourage kids to go to college and to experience those opposing views is because that eventually, when they become part of the workforce, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to end up working with people they might not agree with, and they get on with them to achieve a common goal. And it makes you wonder, was she in a place which was an echo chamber of sorts? So was it at her workplace as well that she only got to experience this one set of facts, or fiction, one might argue?
And police were called to her $800,000 home on the southeast side of Seattle.
$800,000 home. Now the thing is, I'm not sure if she bought the home or her dad, but isn't it interesting that these socialist activists that you see having taken over so much of the political realm usually come from these upper middle class, somewhat well-to-do families? They're not the kind of working class that they like to think they represent. They're not, most of the time. There's so many working class people who never even get to college.
Neighbors called the police reporting that Burke broke all the windows in her house and was causing a disturbance. When Seattle officers arrived, there were large amounts of glass shards.
You know, when I was a kid, I saw somebody completely lose their mind once. They were angry at something, I remember, and it was a woman. So I don't want to say specifically that is something to do with women. I'm just saying that that's my experience. And she did this crazy thing where, for some reason, she took all the ceramic objects in the house, and the glasses and plates and cutlery as well, and she just smashed all of that. Completely smashed it out of anger. And I'm not sure. I've never lost my mind as such that I would break something like cutlery. Because, well, I'm somebody who, when they get angry, they might want to break something, but immediately thinks about, oh, that might not be a good idea because I'll have to clean it later. That's something to. But have you guys ever experienced, smashing things as a relief? And does it actually give you a relief? Is it something that you've done more than once? I would actually like to know in the comments below.
in the front yard and driveway of the home. This indicated the windows were likely shattered from inside the house. According to court docs, as they approached the residence, they heard a loud clapping sound from inside. That's when officers came face to face with Corey Burke, who was covered in blood. Officers later...
I can just imagine that sight. Come across a house. Imagine being those officers. When you come across a property and you've seen that, and that property seems to have all kinds of damage, and then inside you can hear clapping sounds, and you walk in and you see this woman sitting there covered in blood, joyous about it. It's a disturbing sight when you think about it. It's something strange to imagine.
Described her appearance as disheveled, saying her hair was matted in the back, and in the front, it was stuck to her face with blood.
Got that haircut. You know what I'm talking about?
A responding officer...
Oh, Jesus. Or I'm going to have to wait till we skip this ad finishes.
Reported Corey appeared to have a light layer of blood on the right side of her face, on her cheek, under her eye, and onto her nose.
A light layer of blood on the right side of her face. Was it an artery that she cut? Did she get sprayed with blood?
She also had a line of blood on her lower lip that was thicker and chunkier. This next part is a disturbing description. Her eye and onto her nose. She also had a line of blood on her lower lip that was thicker and chunkier. This next part is a disturbing description.
This next part is disturbing, apparently, if we were not disturbed enough.
The officer wrote, quote, "The blood created a lip liner effect of blood just inside the curve of her lower lip. This is also where the hair from her head was stuck to the blood on her lip. Beyond that, Burke had scratches on her left hand and fingers."
Maybe this didn't happen, but what do you all think? You think she put the blood on her lips? Like deliberately? Like makeup?
She was wrapped up in a blanket. When officers approached Burke, they asked what the clapping noise was. And Corey reported to Officer M. Roy that she had been clapping inside her home because she was happy, so she started clapping.
Okay. Madness. You know, I appreciate families that do try to look after relatives who might have severe mental health issues of sorts. But if anything's been proven in the last few years when it comes to these crazy activists and things like that, we do see this meme every now and then, and you know what? Maybe there's something right about it. Maybe there's something true. Maybe we need to bring back asylums, as they say.
She then told officers she wasn't sure how she'd broken the windows in her house or where the blood on her face came from, but she did say officers were not allowed inside. At this point,
I've heard that there's a thing that happens. Some people who have some extreme mental health issues, and sometimes when they rage, things go dark. When they have an outburst, things go dark. And they don't actually know what happened, in a way. I'm not sure what it's called. I'm quite sure some of you might know what that is. Please leave it in the comments below. Tell us if you think you know what that is.
Officers decided Burke needed to be seen at the hospital. According to court docs, they planned to detain her under emergent detention of the Involuntary Treatment Act. Basically, Burke's current state was off, and officers felt she couldn't care for herself and may be a danger to herself or to others.
You know, this is something I was wondering about when I've seen quite a few outbursts like this in some people. Extreme form of outbursts, not just somebody who's just extremely angry. Just look like somebody who might hurt themselves and others. And I've always wondered if there is some kind of legality, some kind of legal way in which that person can be detained forcefully. Because, you know, how can one prove in that moment that the person opposite is definitely not in control of their thoughts and emotions, especially if there's a person that you've never met. For all you know, that person acts similar when they're in complete control as well. And then, yeah, and then the cops have a bit of a hard, it's a bit of a thin line to walk when it comes to making the decisions. Because if the person in question is actually not completely out of control, then that's the officers are liable in some. Well, the officers, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you force somebody to be arrested because you can tell something's not right with them, then that person might come later and say, I was touched, I was forcefully put in jail, etc. But at the same time, if the officers don't do that, then, you know, somebody else is going to give them grief that they didn't do that. So very, very interesting scenario, very tough scenario to deal with.
As Burke was taken from the scene in an ambulance, neighbors approached the police, telling them Burke's father, 67-year-old Timothy Burke, also lived in the home. Neighbors reported that Tim, quote, had a list of medical issues.
Shout out to the neighbors. Though they called the police when something went wrong, and shout out that they know what's going on in the family. Because unfortunately we live in a society, especially Western society, but we also see this in other countries now as well, is that as we become more and more Western, we've left that sense of community that we used to have in the neighborhood. I know people like to be all, you know, white people are bad, crackers, etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is, if you actually go to some older if you go to neighborhoods where you got some older people living there, who've been living there for a while, they still have that slight sense of community that we don't have anymore. We all think that we've somehow reached this, you know, as we've grown more towards the side of humanism, as they say. We like to think that we're more community-based now, but the fact of the matter is we are actually more distant from each other than we ever were. You know, and the fact he has medical issues. The worst thing, it's one of those things, the worst thing you can have is you live somewhere for years and you don't even know what the opposite neighbor's name is, let alone if they have health conditions. If something happens to you, nobody ever asks. You could be dead in that house for 3-4 days. Nobody asks. At least somebody in the neighborhood would be like, oh, I haven't seen Tim since yesterday. Hope he's okay. Let's go give him a knock. So we need to work on developing our community spirit, I think. We need more of that.
They also reported that Tim did not leave the home often. This info concerns the officers, so they entered the home in what they called a community caretaking capacity.
It's crazy that the cops obviously dealt with the woman but they nearly walked out. It was actually the neighbors that told them, have you checked on the father? For the woman didn't mention the father.
Basically to make sure Burke's dad was inside and safe. In a lower level bedroom, officers located the body of an
myth. Why does a
Oh, for crying out loud.
older white male lying face down on the carpeted floor. This man, later identified as Timothy Burke, was unconscious and had cuts on his left side.
You know what? I do understand the police had a hard job to do, but I've seen too many cop shows, and I think one of the officers should have been checking out the house while one dealt with the victim. Just in case there was an intruder. Yeah.
Side, back, head, and ears. He also had what appeared to be a bite mark, white male, lying face down on the carpeted floor. This man, later identified as Timothy Burke, was unconscious and had cuts on his left side, back, head, and ears.
Left side, back, head. So it's not even from the front. It seems she attacked him while he was down on the floor, possibly. I'm not sure how big the wounds were.
He also had what appeared to be a bite mark on his back. Once
Oh, come on, come on. Bite marks in the back. So she didn't make up. She didn't put blood lipstick. She literally bit her dad.
Upstairs, police found a silver and blue ice pickaxe laying on the floor.
Silver and blue ice pickaxe lying on the living room floor near the top of the stairs.
The axe had blood on it, and soon officers determined it's what Burke likely used to murder her father just before they'd arrived. This is a really tough story to talk about, but I think it's one that's important to tell. And one of the reasons we're able to do that is because of our sponsors like Odoo.
Oh, God. Okay. I understand the need to do this. Okay. Ultimately, you know, they don't have a lot of advertising revenue, so they need to have. Well, some of these segues, man, it makes you wonder, how can you be so cold as to have a segue like that into an advertisement? At the same time, they are the law and crime network, so I think probably way past the point where you've probably seen a lot by now. So,
for the first year with our link odoo.com, investigators, she had been reborn near her birthday, which was October.
Jesus Christ.
odoo.com/LCnews7 to try Odoo for free. Later, Burke told investigators she knew, quote, it needed to happen today. She told investigators she had been reborn near her birthday, which was October 25th, and that she knew there was something important about Election Day.
I'm going to tell you something. As you guys know, I'm not a big fan of Marxists, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert in Marxism, so I'm not going to be one of those guys who says that. However, I do look it up enough to understand what are the negative sides of it, because I think one of the things that people don't talk about is the spiritual side of Marxism. There's a reason that people, so feminists, etc., right now are so cult-like. It's such a cult-like atmosphere because it is a cult. It is a religion. They say it's secular, but it's not. It's really not. There's a few amazing videos on this. I'm sure you can look up Marxism and religion, or no, or I think what it's called, The Cult of Marxism. There's a fantastic author who's done quite a lot of work on it. Can't remember his name. I'll leave the comment if I can find the video on it. And just like many religions, or I would say in a lot of cult religions, there's a rebirth idea. And in the videos I was watching on the religious aspect on Marxism, I remember the person gave a few quotes from Marx's own writings, where he spoke about how he sort of, after achieving that revolution, is that when the human, the socialist creature that's going to develop, the man is going to be reborn, and that sort of thing. I'll try to look it up again. I saw it 3 years ago, to be honest, so I'm not going to remember it word by word. But this is what's sort of hammered into the minds of these activists nowadays, these socialists, these Marxists. They are taught about a religious experience that they would experience once they smash the patriarchy and all that bullcrap.
Burke also noted that she was overwhelmed, saying she was working to set boundaries with her father about his emotions. About this, she said,
working to set boundaries with her father about his emotions. Now this, if you notice, that's how leftists work right now in the politics. Have you ever noticed that?
she wanted to help people change their attachment to their parents. She stated that
she felt that she wanted to help people change their attachment to their parents.
Herself felt hyper-focused and disorganized when it came to her own attachment to her father.
And this projection, I wanted to help people change their attachment to their parents, and you see this throughout the modern era. You see this in the media, you see this on the internet. The way they try to brainwash the kids into becoming these little rebels, even if they don't realize what they do is evil in some way. Look at the idea of gender, for example. I still remember there's actually a Reddit page where kids, and you have to think about this, underage kids can post comments there where you got these brainwashed kids, and it's like, oh, my parent doesn't accept the fact that that inside I'm a girl. So these people on Reddit then facilitate or give them tips about how to run away from home. And they put them in even more dangerous situations. They want you to disconnect from your parents. They want you to disconnect from the patriarchy.
Here's where things get really...
In many cases, it's because they're projecting. It's because they might have their own issues, but they feel the need of projecting that onto other people, saying, oh, this is happening to me. It's also happening to you, but you don't realize it.
Really intense though, and this is a direct quote from the affidavit. She then began to cry, saying she was upset because she thought she had acted too soon. Corey stated that.
What does it mean by I acted too soon? I acted too soon. Was she planning to do this for a while, but then just lost it? Whoa. Okay, I also thought of something else just now. I was reborn on my birthday. It had to happen today. Maybe she acted too soon. There is also another. When I was talking about spirituality and what we see in a lot of feminists, one other thing we see nowadays is a lot of feminists, even though they say they're atheists and don't believe in the metaphysical as such, also practice witchcraft. Sometimes you see teenage girls with tarot cards. They promote this in girls. They also do this thing where they try to use the idea of the. I think everybody's seen this, right? When you have those women with play cards or saying, "We are the daughters of the witches that you killed or you burnt." They talk about the olden days, which, by the way, this wasn't actually as common as they like people to think, but that's something to think about. So when she talks about timing, rebirth around time, it's almost astrological in some sense. It had to happen today because the stars were aligned. It's thoroughly freaking stuff.
That tonight, when her father started arguing with her about the lights being shut off, that she just freaked out. Corey whispered to me, "Will it help?" I responded with yes. Corey then whispered, "I killed him."
YouTube ads. I'm going to... So Corey stated that tonight when her father started arguing about her, about the lights being shut off, that she just freaked out. Corey whispered to me, so I'm guessing this is the officer that was taking the statement, "Will it help?" I responded with yes. I'm a bit confused about this one. Corey then whispered, "I killed him." Will it help what? Will it help if she said that she freaked out? As if that somehow justifies her response, which was killing her father? I think we've seen time and time again in the last few years that violence on the side of the leftist is increasingly excused. I think we saw quite a bit of that during the BLM riots in America, for example. They complained about George Floyd, but you never heard people talk about, like 10 black people who got killed in the riots by protesters. We have videos on Twitter of the riots where they would, break people's cars while they're trying to ride by, break down buildings. But of course, there were videos of them pushing down older white people and then kicking them in the face. And then the reason I said that is because if that is justified as righteous anger, then surely if I freaked out a little bit and lost my mind, then what I did there, I shouldn't be held accountable for that much, or at least I should have some leniency, because if my side is loud, righteous anger, then surely I'll have less of a penalty if I add to that I wasn't thinking straight, that I had some kind of mental health crisis.
Whispered to me, "Will it help?" I responded with yes. Corey then whispered, "I killed him." Burke told officers she was triggered when her father refused to turn off the lights, and she was upset about the election results, saying, quote, "Well, now the president is going to be Donald Trump." Burke admitted
freaking out over her dad not switching off the lights. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I freak out about that sometimes as well. It's quite annoying. I gotta pay the bills. The least you can do is shut off the lights, but you know, not freaked out like that, obviously. And Donald Trump is going to be president. You're 33. You spent 4 years with Donald Trump as president. Nothing happened to you. You idiot. I keep seeing this around. I'm seeing this generally in women, by the way, not, and especially younger girls. What this freak out. They've been so brainwashed, it's been hammered into their minds like the world is gonna end because Donald Trump is president. Forget about the fact that he was president for 4 years. And if anything, relatively peaceful times happened during those 4 years. So right now we're actually at the verge of World War III before Trump stepping into office. So I'm not quite sure if he'll be able to have such a peaceful term. The only war that was going on was the constant attacks from the left on Trump supporters. That was the only war that was going on. You call it a war.
admitted to using an ice axe to kill her father, later saying she had to choke him, quote, and it was really hard. Really.
She had to choke him, and it was really hard. She had to choke him?
Effing hard. At some points, Burke says she felt she wasn't going to be able to choke him, so she bit him. The next part is
her father was 70-year-old. And let's be honest, it doesn't look like this girl knows how to fight. Okay? Looks like one of those keyboard warriors. So I can only imagine how frail her father actually was. And how horrible the situation is
also a direct quote from the affidavit, and it's chilling to say the least. Quote, Corey stated that once her father went limp, she felt better. Corey said that
once her father went limp, she felt better. Like a weight was lifted off her shoulders. The patriarchy had been smashed.
She then hit him with the ice pickaxe in the head several more times. Corey then sat next to her father.
Hit him with the ice pick in the head. You know who also shares responsibility for this? People in the media and all the activists in our education system. They do not give people objective facts. They're extremely biased. And they're instrumental in brainwashing young people.
Father and watched him until she saw that he was not breathing anymore. Corey then went upstairs and broke all of her windows in her home as an act of liberation.
As an act of liberation. Broke all of her windows in her home as an act of liberation. Just like other Marxists like the BLM movement would go around and smash the buildings and windows around their own freaking neighborhoods because it's an act of liberation. She did exactly what these Marxists, these far left mental cases, I would say, but really, let's be honest, this is, as the good book says, it's not just a war about flesh, it's a war of the spirit. And there's an evil spirit working in these people right now. And Marxism is a way to expose these kids to that spirit. This is literally the story of liberation. In this one little incident, you can see the story of liberation that these people are taught over and over again in colleges. You smash the patriarchy. You have to do it through a violent revolution. You will be reborn once that's done and liberated. And rather unfortunately, if we don't do something about it, if we don't protect our kids, or at least teach them objective opinions, right? Don't try to brainwash them in your own way, but objectively tell them about things. Unless we start doing that, then we might see worse things happen in the future. That's my 2 cents on this incident. Do leave the comments below. Smash that like button. Share this video with whoever you can. And subscribe to Tenable Gaming. There's still about 17 more minutes of this, so I'll leave the link of this video below in the description. I think I've pretty much had enough of this incident. Well, God bless you. Good night.